Hi, everyone. It's Antoinette Rodney, the founder of The Word Changes. Thanks for joining us today for our first installation of our Living a Successful Life webinar series. We are so thankful and honored to have Ashleigh Maynor here with us. She's the founder of Intentional You, and she will be discussing the 5 rules for making your relationship work with your career goals. And just a little bit about The Word Changes. I founded The Word Changes back in 2014 after a series of life experiences that led me to the epiphany of the power of words and how they can change our lives. And through that, I found that I had a passion for transforming lives and transforming lives the way that my life was transformed. And so I started The Word Changes in order to use that as a platform to impact humanity. So through words, fashion, and giving, The Word Changes seeks to make an impact on humanity. So, and also 2/3 of our profits actually go to fight child hunger and encourage higher education. Right now, we sell t-shirts, mugs, and greeting cards, and it's through the purchase of our products that we're able to give. And, the whole point of this webinar is to use it as a platform in order to change lives, to transform lives. So we're so happy you're here with us today, and we have an announcement actually, and it's concerning one of our products. We're so excited that very, very soon we're going to be introducing a new product, and we're excited about it and hope that you stay tuned for that announcement. So this year, our theme is Living Your True Life 2016, and we believe that this is the year that you are going to let go of your fears and that you're going to leave behind what's holding you back and actually live your true life. So this webinar is meant to motivate you to doing that. And the focus of this Living Your Successful Life webinar is on managing your relationships while managing your career. And there's one thing that I really want you to keep in mind throughout this webinar, and it's the fact that all of your accomplishments can be traced back to a relationship. And that's why I wanted to start with a series on having a successful life, and this first webinar being about relationships, because that promotion that you got was as a result of a relationship. The new book that actually prompted you to discover a business idea or a passion, and that new book being recommended by a friend or a colleague, that's based on a relationship. So just pay attention to that during the course of this webinar. And you'll see the hashtags at the bottom of the screen. So tweet, post on Instagram, just let people know what we're discussing during this webinar and get the word out. And we want you to interact with us. So we want you to join in on the conversation. As you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a box with an arrow. Just click on that and then type your question in the box, and we'll get to it as soon as we can. We're going to try to answer as many questions as we can. And finally, before we introduce our speaker, is our giveaway. If you stay with us till the end, we're going to be giving away one of our success t-shirts that'll commemorate this Living a Successful Life webinar series, and we're also going to announce a discount code for you to shop on our website for all those that attended. So stay tuned for that at the end. And without further ado, I want to introduce Ashleigh Maynor, the founder of Intentional You. Hello, Ashleigh.
Hello, Antoinette. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I can't complain.
Perfect, perfect. How about you just tell us a little bit about yourself and Intentional You?
Yeah, so as Antoinette said, my name is Ashleigh Maynor. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Michigan, also known as a licensed therapist. Started Intentional You almost a year ago, and it kind of was birthed from, working with clients and seeing that one of their biggest qualms with life in general was not being fulfilled as a whole, not finding fulfillment or enjoyment in their career or relationships. And so really it was just God telling me that, one, myself, I needed to be more intentional in my life, and then in working with my clients, helping them to be more intentional as well. And so that's where intentional you came from. And so been trying to build that over the last year, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to do this webinar with you today.
All right, great. And we're thankful to have you as well. So let's just jump right into it. So how did you decide on which 5 rules you were going to discuss with us today?
Yeah, so the 5 rules were a combination of things. One, in working with clients over the last years from a counseling perspective and with different best practices, looking at the guidelines that have been most successful in my work with my clients. So that's one of the ways that the 5 rules came about. And then the second way is really just what worked well for me and my relationships and friendships over the years, and wanted to make sure that these were things that I was sharing with other people so that they could be successful and not only progressing in their career, but also helping to build strong foundations within the relationships as well.
Perfect, perfect. I love it. All right, well, rule number 5. We're going to do 5 rules, and the first one we're going to discuss is balance versus integration. So let's start with integration. What is integration, and what does integration of your career and relationships look like?
Yeah, so the dictionary definition of integration is the act of combining or adding parts to make a unified whole. So what does integration look like with your personal life and your career? It's basically enmeshing the two. There's no complete fine lines. Everything is kind of gray matter when you're integrating. And so a lot of people are really more accustomed to integrating their career with their relationship than they are at balancing the two. So what that might look like is doing work on your phone while you're in bed. If you're like me, answering emails first thing in the morning, I haven't even gotten out of bed yet, and I'm checking emails and I'm answering them on my phone. Or being out on a date and thinking I'm just going to respond to something work-related really quick, and not really giving your undivided attention to those that you're with. And so a lot of times what you don't want to do with integrate is you don't want to combine the two too often and too much. And really what can happen is blurring the lines will cause you to tip the scales and not really have quality time within your relationships. And you'll end up neglecting either work or you'll end up neglecting those that you're surrounding yourself with.
Right. So what does like too much integration look like? Is that, you're out to dinner with like your friends or your significant other, and like you can't even order because you're so focused on sending that email or responding to, a text message? Like, what does too much integration look like?
No, that's exactly right. So those are 2 perfect examples. One of the best ways is go out to dinner and notice everybody that's on their phones. Notice if you're sitting at a table, rather than having your phones in your purse, you'll probably notice that everybody at the table is on their phones at some point during dinner. On the flip side, let's say too much integration at work. And I can be guilty of this as well. Being able to sit at work and, you're texting in your group chat all day, and, 1 o'clock rolls around and you haven't really been productive. You haven't really gotten too much work done. So it's on both ends of the stick, but definitely if there's too much of a good thing, that's when you know that you're integrating a little bit too much.
Right. Makes sense. Now, what about balance? What is balance? What does that look like? It's just often difficult for many of us. I know firsthand, like balancing, it's just hard for me to incorporate. So what are some tips you can give on effectively balancing work and our relationships? So what is balance, and then what are some tips on how we can balance?
Right. So balancing is trying not to juggle everything all at once and instead being able to set priorities and manage your time wisely. So a lot of times what that will look like is creating a schedule and really being intentional with your time. One of the best examples I can give is, with my friends, either setting up times to have conference calls if there's like a group of five of us and we're spread all across, the United States. And so setting up a dedicated time for us to check in with one another and see what's been going on in each other's lives. Or I'm known to schedule dates with my friends. So, we'll schedule time to go get pedicures or meet out for dinner. And sometimes that's needed just because the hustle and bustle of life, you could go months and not talk with somebody. They might be on your mind, but you don't connect with them. So it's really important to schedule that time, or when they do cross your mind, send them a note, send them a text. I like to send cards to people as well. Do something thoughtful to let them know that, you know, you're thinking of them. And then follow that up with your actions by creating time to spend with them as well.
You raised such a good point about when someone comes to mind, actually acting on that. Because there's been times where someone has come to my mind and I'm in the middle of a task and I say, you know what? I just thought about that person, but as soon as I finish this task, I'm going to text them, I'm going to call them, and then I finish the task and I'm on to the next task. And I forget to do it. And I think that is so important to kind of give yourself that note, force yourself to just do it at that time. So that's great. Now, when you talk about scheduling with your friends and what about like your siblings, your parents, is it the same way? Do you calendar, making time for them too if you have such a busy schedule?
Yes, I would say it's the same thing. If it's not something that is organic in your everyday life where you pass, excuse me, you cross paths naturally on a day-to-day basis, then yes, you need to be very intentional in scheduling time to spend with your loved ones as well.
Right, right. You know, so we're talking about making time for other people, whether it be family, your significant other, but not only is it important to have successful relationships with friends, but also to have successful relationship with yourself, like loving yourself and taking care of yourself, exercising, eating healthy. Like,
Mhm.
how do you fit in all of those things, like healthy eating, exercising, taking yourself to the spa, when your schedule's already bursting at the seams?
I think it's something that's important to do where it might not be a weekly thing, but it might be something that you have to do once a month. Commit to doing that. I think self-care is definitely important because burnout is real, and being able to pour into others and give your best to others, you can't do that if you're not pouring into yourself first. And so sometimes being able to take that time to go to a movie by yourself, or go get a massage, have a spa day, get a pedicure, um, sit at home all day, watch Netflix or read books, whatever you like to do, whatever kind of re-energizes you, that's the thing that you need to do to make sure that your tank is not on E. I think one of the things that is important to do, and I was talking about this in a think tank that I have, or that I go to, is writing your goals and being able to make time. And so when you have goals, include a goal for yourself as well and be able to create a schedule around that. So on the third Saturday of every month, I'm going to get my hair done and get a pedicure and use the afternoon to, read my favorite book.
Right. No, that's so good. I'll never forget. I was like 16 in high school, And my sister said to me, because she would go out to eat a lot by herself. And I'll never forget one day she said, if you can't enjoy your own company, then how are you going to enjoy the company of others? And that was just so profound to me. That just stuck with me. And from that day on, I made a point of like going out to eat by myself, like if I ate lunch by myself sometimes, because I felt that yes, I need to love myself in order to be able to give out to other people. So I'm totally into doing things, for myself to help me to recharge. So that's
Yeah.
great. That's great. So okay, let's move on to rule number 4. And you know, uh, this rule, communicate and negotiate. We're started at rule 5, but we're working down to rule 1. And is it because rule 1 you consider to be the most important rule?
I would say yes. Rule number 1 is probably the most integral part to making sure that rules 2 through 5 are really working well.
Okay, makes sense. So communicate and negotiate. You use the tagline, communicate to win. What does that mean?
Communicate to win really just means that communication is kind of the foundation. It is the foundation for any great, healthy relationship. You have to be able to communicate well. In order for your relationships to really thrive in that way, there has to be open communication, or else you're going to hit roadblocks and barriers, and whether it be in your career or within your relationships, it's not going to work without being open and honest in your communication style.
Right, right. So how do you suggest, like, what's the best way to communicate, like, your expectations to your significant other? Like, and where should that conversation happen? Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that one of the first steps in being able to communicate well is to really change your mindset and realize that it's not all about you. Looking at transforming your I's to we's, or your me's to we's, and realizing that it's a teamwork and community effort. So whether that be with your partner, your friendships, your family members, or even your colleagues, that you need that support, and you can't do everything um, on your own. And then secondly, in communicating to win, you should be able to set up expectations and let somebody know that here is what I need you to know about, the ebbs and flows of my work, or here's what you can expect me to do, or here are the days that you can expect me to be working late, or I have a ton of projects. You should know that my job takes a lot out of me, and maybe going to dinner and a movie this weekend might not be the best, but why don't we try looking at making dinner at home and then going to a quiet bookstore and picking out a book that we'd like to read together over the next 2 months.
Right,
So
right.
really helping them to understand the why of your work, why your work's important, and why you need this time to dedicate to your job in order for you to progress and be upwardly mobile, but then also communicating to them that they are also important and of value to you, and that you're going to be purposeful in trying to create time to be with them as well.
Right. And I guess what's really important is that once you say that, you make that commitment, that you actually stick to it, because I guess a big part of it is, yes, someone will allow you that time, but then when they're expecting their time has come, that you're actually going to fulfill what you promised.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So you talk about negotiate. So, generally when I think of negotiating, I think of contracts, business deals. What does it mean to negotiate in a relationship?
So I like to say that negotiating does not end with salaries and benefit packages. It goes much further than that. So really, with negotiating is simply compromising, and being able to express your needs first and then your wants, and then try to find a common ground that works for both of you in a respectful way, but allows you both to still um, keep, again, lines of communication open, and being flexible and malleable to, again, those different ebbs and flows that might be happening in life or within your work as well. And
Right.
really just having a positive mindset when thinking about negotiating as well, and being willing to participate in a positive way.
So with negotiations, there has to be kind of like a give and take. So one thing is, in a relationship, usually people are, passionate about their position. So, like, how do you suggest couples like overcome like a deadlock is what I like to call it, in negotiations? So, for example, let's take the career aspect, in the sense that, you know, both people in the relationship enjoy their career very much, but then one of them gets an opportunity to actually go overseas or move to another state for a job opportunity. And so how can that person who has the opportunity communicate to the other partner why moving is a good choice? And I'm using moving as an example, but it could be anything else, like why they should start, why they shouldn't spend, excess money anymore and should save to buy a house. It could be a number of things, but I'm focusing on the career. So how does that spouse who wants to make the move basically show the other spouse why it's a good choice? And of course it's going to be tough for the other individual who would have to give up their career with
Right.
no surety that there's an option in the new location for them to do what they were doing before. How does that happen? Do you come armed with like your evidence, like with your list of the neighborhoods that are good, or information on school districts? Do you come with all of that at the beginning, or do you wait to introduce that later? I know I put a lot out there, but
That's okay. That's a really good question, because it's real life and that happens. Um, so what I would say, one, that would be a difficult conversation to have in general, just because you're asking a lot out of a person, and you're requiring, or not requiring, but again, yeah, asking a lot out of them. And so that definitely requires a lot of planning, and depending on where you're at in your relationship, that's where I would start off, where you might be at. So if very committed, engaged, soon to be married, a lot of planning goes into that. If you're um, dating in the early stages, that might be something to consider a little bit more wisely, to
right.
make such a large decision. But um, I really think that it depends on what is important to that person, and what they value more. A lot of times it's perspective. Is my career something that I can grow in and progress in this other location, although it might be a little bit different at first, or how can I be creative in considering this move? Or do I value my relationship more? And um, do I decide to go with my partner so that I can be supportive in their career? Hopefully they would be the same in mine as well. But I think that's the one thing that individual would have to think about. What's more important to them at that time, growth in career, or the value of their relationship? And for some people, it is career, and they try to make it work long distance. And there are a lot of people that have really successful relationships with a long distance aspect to it. But to answer the second part of your question, I think it's a really good idea that that person would be able to bring some pros and cons to the table, and being able to have those potential places, whether it be schools or locations, areas that they can live, do it in a gentle way. I wouldn't encourage that person to say, here are some things, and shove it in their face right away. I think using that as a means to open the conversation, and then being really thoughtful and saying that, we're just in the infancy stage of discussing this, and I really want you to be someone with input and be supportive of this decision, not only for me, but then also I want to be supportive of you as well, and I don't want to do anything that's going to destroy your career aspirations. So I think having those options, those pros and cons to bring to the table is great, but include your partner in making those ultimate decisions. Don't present that to them in a way that here's the end all be all of what our plans are going to look like. Make sure that you include them in those plans as well. But I think it's great that maybe you're bringing some good ideas to the table and maybe helping them to better understand what that might look like for them.
Right, right. What I like to do too, like I try as much as I can to, whenever I'm coming into a situation where I have to say no or ask someone to give up something, to have another alternative. Because it's always easy to say, no, I don't want to do that, or no, that's not good. But if you don't have another alternative, it's almost like the person can get defensive,
Right.
So maybe I would go into that, if I were to ask my husband to move, maybe I would say, I researched, your career, and I saw that there's this big company out there that maybe you can call, and we can start to look into that to see if there's even possibilities, But that's just me. I just always like to approach it with, there is some option for you. It's just not me that's going to get the bulk of the benefit here. So, yeah. All right. This is all great. I'm getting excited. And I just want to remind everyone before we move on to the next rule that if you have any questions, there is a plus sign in your box on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can click on that and type in any questions you have, and as we're going through the discussion, we'll do our best to answer the questions in the order that they come in. So let's move on to Rule 3, boundaries. All right. So why do we need boundaries between our work and our relationships?
Honestly, we need boundaries because without boundaries, you're bound to suffer from job loss or relationship breakdown. One of the two, or both.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that having boundaries, I should back up and say that your career is going to bleed into your personal life at some point. So if there's no way to completely 100% separate the two. But there is opportunity for you to set a boundary so that when you're leaving work or you're with your partner, that you're setting up parameters that help to, again, foster that healthy relationship, but then and also foster career growth and potential without them interrupting or negatively impacting one another.
Right. Right. So okay. So I set boundaries, and this is something I struggle with a little bit. So how do you stay committed to the boundaries you put in place? Because one of the things that happens, sometimes for me is, I'll designate a block of time, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to do this task in this amount of time, and then after that, I'm going to go on to, spend time with my significant other. But sometimes that task takes longer than you anticipate. It could be that you have computer breakdown or something out of your control, but you end up taking longer. Like, how do you pull yourself away once that allotted time is gone, and don't give in to that urge to complete the task so you could check it off your to-do list? How do you handle that?
So let's say you've made very clear, you've set some really clear boundaries in place, and you're trying to stick to them. I think that if you're trying to the best of your ability the majority of the time, that's great. Life is going to happen, and it's going to cause you to not be able to stick to those 100%. But that's where I think, being flexible is really crucial, and having a partner that, um, or, or friendships or family members that are flexible as well is really important because they'll understand and be supportive of you when those hiccups happen, but because you've been consistent in setting boundaries previously, when those things arise, those every blue moon type of moments, it's understandable because it's not something that you do on a consistent basis, and they know that Antoinette or Ashleigh is committed, or they're being very intentional in making sure that in any other circumstance, day or time, they say what they're going to do. And this must be an emergency or a time where they have to break the rules or bend the rules a little bit because, again, life happens and things are going to come up. And you don't have control over that most of the time. Things that you do have control over, they're in line with what they said that they were going to do.
Right, right. No, that is true. I guess the key is that it's not happening all of the time. I
Right.
guess when it's happening all of the time, you got to get into negotiation,
Yeah.
communication,
Mm-hmm.
balance, integration. You got to put them all into play and start from scratch. Come up with a plan. So, yeah, I think that's great. Now, how do you suggest, okay, you already have a full plate. So you have a full-time job, you have husband, you have kids or not, family, friends, and you have this burning desire in you to start a business. You're not in a financial position to leave your full-time job in order to start the business, so you're going to have to do it while you're managing everything else on your plate. Like, what tips can you give us for adding to a full plate? Because when you have a burning desire for something, you
Mm-hmm.
you believe that you're actually heading towards maybe your purpose, your passion, so you don't want to toss it to the side. So how can we manage it all?
Yeah, so I think that's really common in today's society. You have a lot of people now with the entrepreneurial spirit, but they have the full-time job that helps them to start their business until they're able to go full-time, plus everything else that's on their plate as well. So I really think that it's about creating time and carving time out. And we mentioned priorities before, and just add time management to that as well. So setting up priorities and really getting good with managing your time. Again, I keep using the word intentional, but shameless plug, you have to be intentional in carving out time to work on your business, time that you spend with your friends or your kids or your significant other, and then also being able to dedicate time to yourself as well. So again, scheduling, creating a schedule, and planning. Here's this weekend I'm going to go to the zoo with my family, or this Friday night it's girls' night, and I'm gonna hang out and go to the movies with the girls, or there's no phone after 11 p.m., or there's no phone um, at the dinner table. And what you're really doing when you're setting up those boundaries is you're giving your relationships your undivided attention, and um, again showing how much you care and you value them. And again, you can go out anytime, whether you're at the mall, you're at a restaurant, you're at the salon. Look at how And I'm guilty of it too. I'm on my phone all the time at the salon. I used to, back in the day before smartphones came along, I'd be talking to the person next to me, or I'd be in my magazine, or I'd bring a book. But now, I could sit and talk to my stylist and be on my phone the whole time. So it's
Right.
really easy to do, but if you are if you're very purposeful in setting up those boundaries and sticking to them, you'll start to get rid of those bad habits.
Yeah, it's funny that what you say about the phone. I totally agree. At the nail salon, getting a pedicure, and when I'm done getting the pedicure, I say to myself, "Man, if I only had 10 more minutes, I could finish sending this email out." It's
Right.
always multitasking.
Yeah.
So, so that's great. So far we've done Rule 5, which is balance and integration. We've done Rule 4, which is communicate and negotiate. Rule 3, which is boundaries. And now we're into Rule 2, which is work, 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 work. And it just reminds me of, that song.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me guess though. We have to put in the work in our relationships. Is that what this is about, this rule?
Yes, you are totally correct with that. In order to make your relationship work, you're going to have to put in work. Work equals effort, right? You have to put in the effort. And you have to really make your relationships like a part of your journey. And when I say a part of your journey, what I mean is letting those people that are important to you into your world so that they can better understand your goals and they can be more supportive of your workload and your career aspirations. And in turn, you're doing the same for them. So you're letting them know that you're supportive of them. You want to know what's going on in their life. And that's really how you build a genuine support system, ultimately.
Right, right. You know, so when we treat our relationships as partnerships and in terms of husband, wife, whatever, what about like our relationships, like flipping it on its head a little, our relationships in the workplace? I'm someone that I'm always very careful about how much I open up myself at work, to intimate relationships because of the fact that, you get concerned about what happens if this relationship or this friendship goes sour. But what are some tips you can give us? Because I think everybody can relate to this on how to manage your BFFs at work, so that those relationships at work don't become a failed partnership.
Yeah. So I think everybody can relate to having a best friend at work, and I think they're great, just because uh, BFFs at work, they're your work confidant, and research has shown that it's really helpful to have someone that you're close with at work because there's more job satisfaction while you're there. So a couple things that I would say. One is don't be so quick to open up all the way. Yes, you have to build rapport and build trust, but those are the two things that you have to do first: build rapport and build trust. And you might meet someone that you really, really connect with and you really, really like, and you might naturally want to let them in or tell them a little bit more about yourself, but learn who that person is, get to know them really well, and trust them before um, giving them all the details of your life or issues that you might be having at work. And then second thing I would keep in mind is stay professional. I think a lot of times we treat our work BFFs like we would our BFF outside of work. And uh, those personal stories or experiences start to cross lines, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's when again you might not necessarily know that person as well as you thought you did, and your experiences or those situations, so and so in the queue three queues down from you start to hear about it, or you
Hmm.
complain to your work BFF about your boss, and so and so around the next on the next floor heard that you're having a little issue with your boss. So I think it's really, as much as you want to share, and it's great to become close and have those people that are close to you, draw a fine line where, again, some of those personal things that you want to talk about, leave that for people that aren't connected to you at work. And you can still have really great relationships with people at work. And I have friends that I work with, um,
Hmm.
and we do stuff outside of work, but there's still a level of professionalism because of the fact that we do work together. So we can still be close, and still know a lot about each other's lives, and when frustrated, I might go in their office and cry, and vice versa, and they're a great support system in the workplace as well. But there's just certain things that I'll share with my best friends that I might not share with my work best friend, and
Right.
I do that for that reason, to again kind of keep that boundary set in place.
I think that's a really good point about, being professional and taking time with the relationship, the friendship, because in truth, you see them in one type of environment. You
Right.
don't know how they are with their family outside of work, so you can't really divulge too much information until you get the full picture or as close to the full picture as you can. So I totally agree with that. That's really good advice. So you know, what about developing a healthy relationship with like your boss and your coworkers in the sense that you're trying to build up a good team so that when unexpected things happen in life, like sickness in your body or your family, childcare issues, when these kind of things happen in life, you have the support and compassion. Like, what are some key things we can do to develop this healthy relationship with your boss and your team?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned before, like treat your relationships as partnerships, and I would say the same thing when looking at your relationships at work as well. These are going to be partners that have your best interest at heart, and so I would I would say that there are times where you're going to share your goals, let them know, again, let them in on your journey, being able to, and this is where the integration, or I should say the balance part comes in. When you're doing your job really well and you're building those strong relationships at work, people don't really have that much of an issue when those things come up, because they know that Ashley's going to take care of what she needs to take care of. So her leaving out a little bit early because she's sick, or her leaving out a little bit early because there was a family emergency, you know, I'm fully confident that she's going to be able to take care of family matters and then come back and dedicate herself to make sure that this project is done. So I think that's where being open and developing those relationships and building that trust with people is important, because when you need that time off, and I should say doing your work really well, and committing to work when you're at work, when you
Right.
need time off, it's not a problem, unless you just have a supervisor or a boss that is a micromanager and has it out for you from the start. Then that's out of your control. But outside of that, you shouldn't have a problem with that.
It's funny that you say that because, there are horrible bosses. And unfortunately, at some point in our lives, many of us will have that, because our bosses are human. And they come to the workplace with their past. And I'll never forget, I at my job, I had a great relationship with my direct boss and with the head of the agency. And a point in my life came when I had some serious health issues. And because of the reputation I built, they were fine with me doing a reduced work week. So I worked longer hours on 4 days of the week and had one day off because that would just give me time to rest my body. And it was fine until I got a new boss. She came from outside of the agency, and just from the beginning, you could just tell she did not like the fact that I had this reduced work week. And it was horrible. Like, my work product, the track record that I had built didn't matter. And so, like you say, that was out of my control. That I couldn't do anything about it. But it can affect someone's career goals, unfortunately, because that new boss is someone that could give them a review, stuff like that. Do you have any tips on just what can someone do in the meantime when they have this horrible boss?
I would say still try and stay as positive as you possibly can. Try not to be confrontational because of the fact that they do have that power to write bad reviews for you. You can always go to HR as well, but again, depending on the excuse me, the size of your organization and the relationships that your supervisor might have with HR, that might be a lost cause as well. So there are it's true.
No, you're absolutely right.
Depending, again, on your organization, there might be other outlets that are separate from being directly related to your organization. So, for example, a lot of times working at a university, they have a separate entity, a part of the health system, that you can go to for personal and career support. I would say get a career counselor or a career coach, or just a therapist in general, to release your frustrations and then to help you manage your work while you're looking for another position.
Awesome. Awesome advice. All right, and now we are at rule number 1, our final rule: commit and compartmentalize. What does that mean, and what do we need to do to be successful in accomplishing this?
Sure. So I think commitment is important because without it, you won't see anything through. You won't be able to carry out your work, dedicate yourself to a job, or dedicate yourself to building really healthy relationships. So I think the first step in really being able to commit is choosing the right partners. So choosing to surround yourself with people that support you and your career aspirations and vice versa, and then being able to show unconditional support. So there are going to be times where you might be at odds within your friendships or within your relationship, but still being supportive of what goals that they have. Like we mentioned before, making them a priority and being able to manage your time and show them that they are an important part of your life by spending quality time with them. And so those would be, just a couple of the steps that, first come to mind when I think of really being able to make a commitment to someone and being very intentional in that way.
Right. And in order to make that commitment, you got to be able to give them the focus, your
Right.
time. So how do you recommend that, someone, they're coming from work or they're working at home and they're winding down? How do you recommend that they de-stress, and separate themselves from their work before now switching gears to their significant other or their family?
Yeah, so I think that will vary for the individual, how you decompress. Um, I like to, depending on, the day I've had, I either like to listen to some gospel music or I like to listen to music in general, or um, sometimes I just need to come home and take a nap to refresh before connecting with anybody. So I would say that that might vary depending on the individual themselves. But I think the most important thing, and we might be kind of leading into this, but knowing when to um, compartmentalize. So really, you can't if you want to de-stress, if you want to um, prepare yourself to place yourself in the relationship or connecting with your partner again, you have to decompartmentalize, or I should say, you have to compartmentalize and be able to leave work at work and change your mindset and get ready to spend time with those people that are important to you. And so really being able to limit how much time you're focusing on work. Again, you'll have ebbs and flows. There'll be times where, that's out of your hands because you have a deadline or you have a project due, but don't drive home still checking your email. Don't get home and start on the project that you really could, just do at work tomorrow if you stuck to working and not being within your group chat.
Right, right. No, I think that's so important because in the end, you have to be able to pay attention, give your undivided attention to the individual that you're with or the people that you're with. Because if not, it's almost like you don't value the relationship. And people always want to know that they're valued. So,
Right.
It just sounds like from our discussion that we have to be intentional. I'll do the plug for you. We do have to be intentional throughout each and every one of these rules. It's a matter of taking an active, being active in saying to yourself, you know what, this is a relationship I value, and I'm going to schedule time to spend with this individual, get myself away from my phone and my computer. So it's definitely, intentional, and it can be challenging.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's all of our rules. We've gone through rule number 5, balance first integration. Rule number 4, communicate and negotiate. Rule number 3, boundaries. Rule number 2, work, 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 work. And rule number 1, commit and compartmentalize. So now we'd like to do a poll. Or actually, if anyone has any questions, I don't know if anyone have any questions, or we'll do the poll and then we can go to the questions. So if you want to just respond to the poll and give us an idea of, who's in the audience, that would be great. And so we're going to give you about maybe 10 more seconds, and then we can share the results of the poll. So it looks like, how often do you bring work home? So 33% of the people say every day, 33% say a couple times a week, 17% say a couple times a month, and 17% hardly ever. Wow. So a third of the people are bringing home work every day, Ashleigh.
I like I said, it's really easy for integration to happen. And with everything being digital and our phones being so easily accessible to emails and to communicate in that way. It's easy to bring work home, whereas, you know, 20 years ago, email was, you know, just starting to get to its height, and you could only access it either at work or if you had a computer at home. And so now it's easy access, and easy to get to, and so it's just easier to stay in work mode when you're not at work.
Right. Wow. All right. Let's see. We have a question, and it's from Jenna. Uh, It says, when you trust a coworker and was able to confide personal problems with her, but you find out it was a mistake since she broadcasted my business to other coworkers, how do you come back or how do you fix the issue? That's a good question.
It is. So in that instance, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So I think in that instance, it's completely okay to address directly the coworker and let them know how that made you feel, and let them know that in a professional setting, this person or this coworker of yours was someone who you trusted, who you felt very comfortable with, and you thought that what you were telling them was confidential information. I think at that point you also need to let them know that, going forward, the dynamics of the relationship will be different,
Right.
And that, you know, if you honestly, excuse me, do forgive them, that that's something, again, you let them know, and then I say fall back, like handle them with a 10-foot pole. If and keep it professional, keep it cordial, keep it professional. No need to get nasty, no need to burn any bridges. Let them know, like, my feelings were hurt. I really don't like the fact that my business is all over the office. But that's also a lesson learned for you too, where that's why it's beneficial to have people that you're close with at work, but there's just certain things that you might not want to share in that type of environment.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Ashley. It's like, if you want to mend the relationship, that person has to build that trust back. I mean,
Exactly.
and it's going to take a while because, you, Jenna, were genuinely a friend to that person and gave that person your trust, and they broke that trust. And it's like with any other relationship, they have to earn it back if they want to.
Exactly.
But it's for them to show you that, you know. So that's an awesome question. It doesn't look like we have any more questions, so maybe we can move to um, our giveaway. Is that what we're doing next? Let's see. Yeah. So I am going to do the giveaway to make this, as fair as possible. It would be the the let's see, Jonathan Hardy. Jonathan Hardy, you are the winner of our Success Shirt giveaway. So what I'm going to do is email you, and I will ask you for your mailing address. But congratulations, you have our first Success T-shirt commemorating our Living a Successful Life webinar series. And the discount code for the the discount code, I'm sorry, people, is relationships. And you can use that discount code for the next 24 hours. So until tomorrow, at this time, you can get 50% discount off of all of our products. And a link to this webinar recording will be emailed to you so you can listen to it again if you missed anything. And also, you have Ashleigh's contact information here, her Twitter, her Instagram, her Facebook. So connect with her. She has some great motivational posts every day that I myself get touched by. So yeah, and stay tuned. This is a series, so we will be announcing our next installment. So I just want to thank everyone for joining. Ashleigh, I just want to thank you so much. Do you have anything you want to say in closing?
Well, just one, thank you all for joining us, and hopefully you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram and or Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. My website will be going live on July 1st, so you'll be able to connect with me there and on my blog as well. And Antoinette, I just want to say thank you again for this opportunity. I love your movement and your mission. And for those of you who don't have any of Antoinette's shirts, go get you one because they're cute and super soft. And yeah, again, just thank you for this opportunity. It's been a blast. I had a great time.
Me too. Thanks so much, Ashleigh. And thank you, everyone.